Hey, y'all, I'm Cody. It's time to catch up. Grab your headphones and fill your cup. Sports and life, I've got stories to share. Sit back, relax like you just don't care.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Catch Up with Cody podcast. I'm your host, as always, Cody. We have a special guest on today, Zac. Third time's the charm. We've had some technical difficulties here the last two times we've been getting this to work. So let's, I guess, knock on wood that this will be the one that works. But thanks for coming on. And, we kind of, go back a little bit. We were college classmates back in Northwood now, what, 5 or 6 years ago? So it's crazy. I mean, the full circle moment from where we were and where we are now. We both have our own podcast. He has Guys Time with the Brys. So yeah, just thank you again for coming on and appreciate you being here for sure.
Yeah, thank you for having me on the podcast, man. Like you said, third time the charm. I actually moved up because from the basement into the kitchen because right behind me is where the router is. So maybe that's the reason why. Or maybe, Zoom will be better than Riverside like we did last time. But yeah, it's an honor to be on the show, man. And, I'm catching up with Cody. You're doing some great work, man. It's fun seeing your posts on Instagram and Facebook and all the social media platforms. It's really cool what you're doing, man. I like that background too. So, but yeah, it's an honor being on the show. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, of course. It's not the craziest thing I got going on yet, but we're working there. So, but yeah, sure. I mean, I'm hoping eventually I'll get a studio and everything and it'll be more official, but hey, you got to start somewhere. So, but yeah, I've been seeing that you've been doing some broadcasting stuff. Super cool. I've seen you've been doing it at my old high school, so that's really cool, and just some other spots. So, what really, I know we both went to school for sports and everything like that. Is that kind of what got you into the broadcasting, or was there something, outside of schooling that got you into that?
Well, the beginning of my broadcasting journey, I guess you can say, all really started with Guys Time with the Brys. I am a sports fanatic at heart. Talking about sports is one of my favorite things to do. So it only made sense for me to start the podcast and then maybe go on and actually make a living doing this, doing a podcast or even becoming a sports broadcaster, which I want to become, because it opened up opportunities for me to do that. And obviously growing up, we listened to some of the greatest commentators of all time. You got Al Michaels out there. Mike Tirico is absolutely phenomenal. He did great. I don't know if you saw it a few weeks ago in the Winter Olympics, the men's USA versus Canada. He did that monologue toward the end of the broadcast. Absolutely phenomenal. So he's one of my favorites as well. You got Ken Daniels, the voice of the Detroit Red Wings. So there's so many great commentators and, on-air personalities. And I want to be a part of that group because, like I said, it makes sense. I'm a sports fanatic at heart. Talking about sports is my game, I guess you can say. And, in life's too short. I don't want to settle for a job where I'm going to be miserable for the rest of my life. I want to do something where I'm having fun and I can make an impact and I can learn and make connections, talk to the athletes, talk to the head coaches, the general managers, travel. I want to have those opportunities. And with sports broadcasting, I will be able to do that. And also with sports broadcasting, I'm in my zone, I'm in my environment. So it only made sense for me to get involved in sports broadcasting. But like I said, it starts with Guys Time with the Brys. I started this 6 years ago, almost coming on 6 years ago. April 20th, 2020 is when me and my buddy Chris Turak, shout out to him, by the way, we did our first episode. And let me be honest with you, it was god awful. I don't suggest anyone to listen to it. But like you said in your intro, you have to start somewhere, right? So obviously I've been doing YouTube videos for the past couple of years. I was strictly doing audio for like 2.5, 3 years. And then I dove into YouTube so people can see my face and they can see my reactions. They can see, what topics I'm discussing. And, that's where my love for sports broadcasting rather kind of started. Guys Time with the Brys was like the genesis of my broadcasting journey as we're going into the year 2026.
Nice. Yeah, and that's kind of where I was, doing the audio part to start and everything. But yeah, like you said, it's I want people to kind of have a face to the voice. And I mean, I know people that have like a radio voice or something like that. I know they'd rather be off camera than on camera, but yeah, this is just something that, I kind of relate exactly with what you were saying. So hopefully one of these days we'll see you on ESPN here pretty soon.
Yeah, that's the goal. I want to be on sports network, a major sports network like ESPN, Fox Sports. Obviously you got Detroit, the Tigers and the Red Wings. Well, the Red Wings starting next year, but the Tigers this year, they got the Detroit Sportsnet network coming on. So obviously there will be opportunities there as well. And then even just radio broadcasting, not just sports broadcasting, radio broadcasting as well. I love music. I love entertainment. So, you have a couple of guys right here in the Metro Detroit area retiring. You have Doug Podell, a longtime on-air personality. He was at WCSX 947, classic rock station, if anyone doesn't know in the Michigan area what that is. And then he went to Wheels for a while. So it opens up opportunities. You got the OGs, I guess the kids call them nowadays, the legends who are retiring. So it opens up for opportunities for me and for anyone else who's trying to get into broadcasting to, shine and show what they got. So yeah, it's been a hell of a ride, but we just keep grinding. Like I said, been doing Guys Time at the Brys for 6 years now, and obviously I've had a handful of broadcasting gigs at your alma mater, Chippewa Valley High School, and that's been fun. That's been really exciting. Just calling basketball games. A lot of great talent, and I got the best seat in the house, so it's really cool. And I want to shout out to the athletic director out there for giving me that opportunity to go out there and broadcast the games, be myself, have fun. You're calling games, you're watching great athletes compete, and it's basketball. So, it's one of those sports where you have to be constantly on the move. You can't miss a beat. There's a few broadcasts where it's just like, I don't know what's kind of going on because it's a fast paced game. You kind of have to pay attention. Obviously to that sport, but just doing broadcasting has been absolutely phenomenal. And hopefully down the road there will be other opportunities. Maybe do soccer. You got hockey still doing some. Still in season. Basketball. I think they're wrapping up regionals at the high school level, I do believe. But then maybe next year, going to the fall, maybe I can do football broadcasts or announcing. And I did announcing gigs as well for Chippewa Valley. It's a little different from broadcasting, but at least I'm getting myself out there. I'm making connections. I'm getting comfortable with the mic. I think the only thing that I wish I had was pronouncing everyone's name right. They didn't give me that when I'm doing the broadcast or the announcing, because I pride myself on that, right? You want to get the name right. These are athletes that are being showcased. They're being presented at kind of a high level, maybe a medium level when we're talking about high school. But I pride myself on pronouncing names right and getting the information right, because you never know who's going to listen. So yeah, like I said, a hell of a ride. And, we just, hopefully 2026 is a great year. It's been great so far, but we'll see. It's only March, so we'll see what happens down the road. But I'm excited.
There you go. And I mean, I know you said something like about the, announcing names and everything. I mean, you see these people in professional sports that they still, struggle with some of the names and everything. But, that's really cool. And it kind of piggybacks off of what I was going to say with networking and everything. It's, the people I've met already doing this podcast is already a lot more than what I thought. I mean, I was just on a sports podcast just the other day. Before I even started the first episode, they already invited me on a second one and to be in their studio and everything. So, yeah, I've met some really cool people. And, I mean, honestly, a lot of the time I feel like you get more support from the online people than you do in person. Not saying that I don't. But it's because everybody, that I'm networking with is going through the same thing that I am. They're going through the same processes, the same struggles, the ups and downs. So there is something to relate in that aspect. I mean, the people around me see what I'm doing and everything, but it's the people that are in the same, circle as us that they see what we're doing, and they see how everything works in the behind the scenes and everything. So yeah, networking is super cool. I can't wait to see what else you do. And yeah, football I think would be really cool. I was a big fan of the high school football. So I think that'd be really cool to see you hopefully do some broadcasting and play-by-play stuff for there. But let's let's get into the real reason why we did this episode, the Detroit sports teams. Um, I know you're a big hockey fan. I'm a big basketball fan. Let's start with hockey there. Trade deadline just ended. We did a little bit of some trades, which it seems like a lot of people were shocked that Yzerman did. Um, with you being a big, hockey fan and Red Wings fan, what's your take? Are you happy with how everything went? I think we're kind of in a little slump, but we're still coming off that Olympic break there. So yeah, give me your take on that.
You know what? I thought Steve Eisman did actually pretty good this year. And I mentioned this actually on my last episode. I talk about, okay, what does the Detroit Red Wings need? Trade deadline was last Friday at 3 p.m. and they need defense. They desperately need defense. I watched a lot of games this year. That defense is god awful. It's horrible, man. It's not fun to watch, especially when they give up the puck and, they're getting beat, 3-on-1. It's like, where's the defense, man? Have to invest in defense. Obviously, talking about another sport, football, defense wins championships. The Seattle Seahawks did that. So it doesn't change when we're talking about hockey. You need defense. That's exactly what Steve Yzerman went after, and they got former Blues defenseman Justin Falk, and he actually made his debut a couple nights ago, Sunday night, in that 3-0 shutout against the New Jersey Devils. So that was a huge statement win by the Detroit Red Wings after losing two horrible games, by the way. Last Wednesday against the Vegas Golden Knights, they had a 3-1 lead going into the third period. They blew it in overtime. And then last Friday, they played the Florida Panthers, who are the defending Stanley Cup champions, and they're barely in the playoff spot, and they got absolutely annihilated. So it was definitely a big win for the Red Wings Sunday night against the Devils, but now they go to Florida, play those same Panthers that they played last Friday, but this time on the road. So hopefully tonight there will be another win for the Detroit Red Wings. But I thought Steve Yzerman did good. A lot of people, it's kind of a mixed reaction. I saw when the post was made that we got Justin Falk, which we desperately needed, because not only is he a huge defensive presence, but he's a veteran. He's 33 years old. He's also a goal scorer. He's got 32 points on the season. So he's kind of like the jack of all trades, and that's exactly what we need. Especially this close to the playoffs, we need a Justin Falk type of player, and that's exactly what we got. So yeah, I was satisfied with it. Obviously we got to win tonight, and hopefully we'll get to see him play, get some ice time. But yeah, this close to the playoffs, wins, we desperately need wins. And I know we'll talk about the Pistons, who, as you know, are struggling these past few games, but you can't be losing games this close to the playoffs. And I know hockey and basketball are kind of around the same time in terms of playoffs. So the Red Wings, I thought they did great. And, Steve Yzerman finally did something at the trade deadline after years of not really doing anything. But yeah, we got our man Justin Falk, and that's a thumbs up in my book.
Yeah, I've been I don't follow hockey, too much behind the scenes. But yeah, I saw that people were a little upset with how Yzerman's been, planning and working with this team. But, I did see that the head coach, Todd McKellen, his comments about, there's some people that are here to play hockey and want to win, and there's some people that are just wearing a Red Wings jersey. And honestly, I think that's what some of these players need, and that's in any sport. I mean, I think a lot of these guys get comfortable in their positions that they're at, and whether it's just, they want to get out there, get the check, and go home, or, if they want to win that Stanley Cup or that championship. But yeah, I mean, I think we need more coaches like him to kind of, and that's what we knew we were getting in the beginning. I mean, I know when he first got here, he was like, look, I'm here to win. I'm here to, get this team up, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm glad that he hasn't, pulled back on any of the things that he said from the beginning. But yeah, you can't be losing games this close to the playoffs. But yeah, I mean, hopefully the Wings pull it out. I mean, we desperately need to continuously make the playoffs. It's been a while since we've been looking good, but in the beginning of the season, I was like, okay, we might be able to figure this out. But yeah, we hit a little bit of slump. But so have our Pistons. So that's not good either.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think it comes down to coaching too, because a few years ago we had Derek Lalone. In my opinion, he had no business coaching the Red Wings. And I'm not saying that to be I know a lot about hockey. I don't. I know a bunch, but I'm not an expert by any means. But he had no business being Red Wings head coach. Getting a guy like Todd McClellan, who is a great head coach, in my opinion, who is old school. And as you mentioned, he's going to get on his guys if they're not playing well. Like if you're here just for the jersey, get out of here, bounce, adios, see ya. We don't need you. Like we're here to win a championship. We're here to make it to the playoffs. Last time we made it to the playoffs was 2016. I was 19 years old. I'm 29 now. So 10 years since we last made it to the playoffs, the Red Wings have. So we got to change it. Yeah, I know. I see your reaction. Yeah, it's crazy, but we definitely changing the tide. This is our best chance, in my opinion. And, obviously the past few years, the month of March and the Detroit Red Wings, they do not have the greatest relationship. I mean, we've only won the past 3 Marches. I did my research, and I think they talked about it on 97.1 The Ticket right here in Detroit, Michigan. They mentioned it last week, I do believe, or a couple weeks ago. The last 3 Marches, they've only had 12 wins. 12 wins in the past 3 Marches for the Detroit Red Wings. So, yeah, they got to clean that up. Obviously, as I mentioned, Sunday night's game against the Devils was a huge statement win. They got a win tonight in Florida, but then you got opponents like Tampa Bay, who's absolutely destroying everybody in the NHL right now. The Buffalo Sabres are having a surprising season after a 14-year playoff drought in the NHL. They're absolutely phenomenal. They actually played the Lightning a couple nights ago, 8-7, I do believe the Sabres won, and there was like over 100 penalty minutes. It was absolute chaos. I wish I watched it, but I didn't. So, but yeah, we're playing teams like that. We have to win those games. I don't care if we're playing at home or on the road. We got to get those points. Those are desperate points that we need. And then, you got Montreal, right there, with us in the standings, and you got Boston behind us as well. So it's a very tight race this year. It seems like a lot of hockey teams, it's anyone's show. It's a crapshoot almost. But yeah, the Red Wings, I like what they're doing. As you mentioned earlier in the season, absolutely phenomenal. And I think that comes with the coaching. Todd McClellan, he actually used to be an assistant coach here many, many years ago. And, he's coached at San Jose for the San Jose Sharks, the LA Kings. So he's been around, and he's a good coach. I like his hard-nosed attitude. Obviously a lot of people nowadays might think he's too tough, but you have to be. I mean, these are grown men. These aren't little kids. Like, we're trying to go to the playoffs and win the Stanley Cup, something we haven't seen since 2008. And I was 11 years old, and the last time they won the Stanley Cup. They should have won in 2009, but that's another story for another time. But having Tom McClellan with the Red Wings is a big fit, or a good fit, rather. I think the perfect fit. Now we just got to finish. We got all these games in March, a couple games in April, and then we got those playoffs starting soon. But yeah, they got a win tonight, and so far, obviously we hit a little slump there for a minute. People were freaking out that March and Red Wings, oh no, here we go again. But tonight we got a win against the Florida Panthers, and maybe change the tide a little bit, change the momentum for the Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah, and I like what you said about coaching and like the system and everything. That kind of goes with the Pistons. I mean, with that 14-win season when we had Monty Williams, we couldn't even buy a win. And now that we have JB Bickerstaff, I mean, I was going to say we can't buy a loss, but losses are coming pretty easy right now. Yeah, it just really it's all about the system. It's all about the coaching. You just need that right coach to that. And, these two coaches, I feel like kind of are similar to each other. They're going to tell these guys, look, if you don't want to play, go ahead and sit on the bench, because we need players that want to play. We want winners. We want people that want to win this championship. That's what they're brought in for. That's what the players are brought in for. And yeah, you can't just have people that are just there to hang out, be on a championship team. So let's kind of talk about these Pistons. Yeah, like you said, the Red Wings are having a slump right now, and so are the Pistons. I'm a little worried only because Boston is looking really good, and Jason Tatum is back, which is a crazy turnaround on how fast he just came back from that injury. I know a lot of people have been saying maybe he wasn't really hurt and this and that. No, that's just pure dedication, and it's just he wants to win, and he knows that he can do it, and they've proven before that they can do it. So, you know, I know you're not a huge basketball fan, but did you see this Pistons team being as good as they are, or were you kind of thinking, maybe middle of the pack type deal? Because that's where I was at. I was thinking fifth, sixth seed at most. So I can't complain on where we're at right now.
Well, yeah, going back to, like you said, a couple of years ago, having that 14-win season with Monty Williams, and obviously that was the whole disaster, right? And I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong here because you're more of a basketball guy than I am, but, you had Cade Cunningham. Okay, where's the assistants? Like, I know he's a great player, but basketball, you need 5 guys on the court. And I know that at least. And he can't be making plays. He can't be scoring 40-plus points a night. You need a supporting cast. He didn't have that a couple of years ago. And then obviously probably with the Monty Williams situation, probably didn't get the best out of him. And then, vice versa. It's a working relationship, right? And, no one responded to him. And that's why they had, 68 losses a couple years ago. Now you got JB Bickerstaff comes in, and he's changing the whole program around. He's getting guys to help out Cade, which you desperately need in the NBA, especially this Detroit Pistons team, they're right there, man. They're one of the best teams in the league, despite the 4-game losing streak. They definitely are right there. But, they're going up against a hard supporting cast. Like you mentioned, the Boston Celtics, who have been a constant contender. It seems like forever. I know they probably have had a couple bad years in that stretch, but I mean, this year they're doing good, and they got Jason Tatum, their best player, I'm assuming, from an Achilles injury, which is that's a crazy injury to come back from, so you have that going on. But yeah, same kind of similar with the Red Wings, man. With the Pistons, they can't be losing these games. They got to come back. I do believe they play tonight. Correct me if I'm wrong. They got the Nets tonight, 7:30. And that's a team they should have beaten because the Nets only have like 15 or 16 wins on the season.
Yeah, and that was the problem that we had a couple nights ago when they played them. It's like, guys, these are the games that you have to win. Like you can't be letting these easy wins. And I know everybody has the same chance going into these games. But yeah, these are the games that you need to win. You need to just take those easy ones, get out of there. But yeah, I mean, a 4-game losing streak. I know this is the worst one they've had all year, and I don't know. I'm hoping this is kind of a wake up call because we need it. We can't be looking like this in the playoffs. That's a first round exit for sure if you're playing games like that. But I don't know. The coaching, like I said, I think we're good. But like you said, the problem is Cade can't be dropping 40 points a night. It would be nice, obviously, if he could do that every game. But I think a lot of teams now coming out of this All-Star break are understanding how he works and how the Detroit Pistons work. Because if you notice, they're double teaming him right at half court. They're making sure they can't get the shooters open. And so, I mean, good for the rest of the league to try to figure out how to stop the Detroit Pistons. But now Detroit needs to figure out how to continue to beat these teams.
Yeah, and that's the thing, getting this close to the playoffs. Yeah, you can't be losing to teams like the Nets, who only have 15 or 16 wins on the season, and you're one of the best teams in the NBA. You can't be losing games like that. Especially when you got Cade Cunningham now, you got Jalen Duren, you got Tobias Harris, you got Isaiah Stewart. I watch highlights of these guys, and I don't know. Maybe this is just my opinion, maybe my observation. You can have a different opinion on this, but it seems like this Pistons team, it's like a combination of bad boys because they've been in a ton of fights this year, trying to bring back that attitude from the late 80s, early 90s Pistons, and a combination of going to work Pistons. When you had Tayshaun Prince and, you had Billups, you had Rip Hamilton, Ben Wallace, and then obviously they signed Rasheed Wallace during the season. Obviously, he was the missing piece to that 2004 championship team. So I look at this team from the highlights and from what I've been seeing everywhere else, and I think it's a combination of both. But you can't be losing 4 in a row. You have to beat teams like Cleveland. I know Cleveland, looking at the standings, they're a top team in the NBA. You got to beat them. You can't be getting blown out like they did. I do believe it was last Thursday against the Spurs. And I know the Spurs are a good team as well, but you have to beat those teams, because come playoff time, as you mentioned, if you're losing 4 straight and, you have foul trouble, you can't shoot the 3-point shot, which they struggled last week. I think I read something they only shot like less than 20% from the three-point mark, which in today's NBA, you're shooting that low of percentage at the 3-point mark. It's an automatic loss, because that's all they like to do is shoot the 3-pointer. But when you have struggles like that and you're going to the playoffs with those statistics, I mean, it's not good, because you're going to be playing against teams like Cleveland and maybe Boston. I don't know, possibly the Knicks, maybe, perhaps, like you did last year. And I think they should have won that series, but that's another conversation for another time. But Pistons right now, just like the Red Wings, you got 2 Detroit teams on the brink of playoffs, and they need to finish out strong. And we're still early in March, so there's a lot of basketball to be played, there's a lot of hockey to be played, but we would like to see wins and points in terms of hockey, but wins nonetheless for the Pistons, especially them being on the 4-game skid. You got to do it tonight against the Nets, a team that you should beat probably by like 20 or 30 points, but it is the NBA, it's sports, anything can happen. But yeah, this team they're good, a lot of young talent. You got a combination of shooters, you got a lot of combinations, you got a combination of a lot of, just big bodies, physicality, attitude, just, I guess, taken away from Dan Campbell, grit from this Detroit Pistons team. But it can't, like I said earlier, it can't be Cade Cunningham. It can't be just the Cade Cunningham show every night, all night. He has a supporting cast now versus a couple years ago, and that's why you've seen some success these past couple of years with the Detroit Pistons, and it's fun to watch. But again, they got to finish out strong. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad you brought up the bad boy era. That's what a lot of people have been comparing him to, and I'm really excited about that. So hopefully we can get over that hump. We can get rid of this 4-game win streak, put it behind us, and get to the next round. All right, yeah. And the last Detroit team that I kind of wanted to talk about was obviously the Detroit Lions. Breaking news today with us getting Isaiah Pacheco. It's like, Sonic and Knuckles are still here. So excited to see how that works. I was talking to a couple of my buddies and coworkers, and I'm thinking we'll use Pacheco on like 3rd and short plays. And give Jahmyr Gibbs those, long running yards and just kind of his burst of speed that he has. But we did some stuff at free agency, and obviously a horrible season last year at 9-8. That is not at all what we wanted or what I thought was going to happen. I hate to say it, but our Super Bowl window is for sure closing. I said it a couple years ago. I'm thinking like 4 or 5 years. I'm thinking now it's this year or nothing. So, how do you feel? We definitely need help everywhere. We lost Anzalone, offensive line right now. I couldn't even tell you besides Penei Sewell who's even on the offensive line. But, how do you feel about all these, roster moves, and what else we got to get?
Well, I definitely agree with you on the Super Bowl window. Like, we have to win this year. I mean, I've been saying that all over my podcast. I've been telling people, my friends and family, I've been posting it on Instagram. Like, our Super Bowl window, it's this year. And what they're doing so far, the Lions, that is, they replaced, obviously, a couple offensive linemen. You got Taylor Decker, who decided to, leave Detroit after, I'm coming back for 11th season, but the money's not right. Okay, I'm going to take my talents elsewhere. Yeah, good luck with that, with the injury history that you have, my friend, and being 32 or 33 years old, offensive lineman. But yeah, good luck with that. So you have that going on. But then you have, releasing Graham Glasgow. And I've said numerous times, the offensive line is Detroit's number one priority. Like, okay, yes, I get it. We need an edge rusher to complement Aiden Hutchinson. I understand that. Okay, we need another running back since we trade David Montgomery to Houston Texans for Juice Scruggs, who, okay, that helps our offensive line a little bit. But now we got Isaiah Pacheco. So, okay, check mark for running back 2, check mark for offensive line help. And then obviously yesterday we signed center Cade Mays from the Carolina Panthers. So I think that was a good signing as well. But you have to beef off the offensive line. Jared Goff, he has to have the most perfect offensive line. If he doesn't, it's over. He can't scramble. He's not mobile, like these other quarterbacks you see, like Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, all these other guys, even Jordan Love. He's not a mobile quarterback. So you're the Detroit Lions. You invest in that offensive line. A couple years ago when you went to the NFC Championship game, and I know this is tough for both of us to discuss because it still gives me nightmares, but what was your bread and butter? Okay, great offense, right? How did that happen? Because you had one of the top offensive lines in the league. So last year, you didn't have that. Yep. Like, you had guys hurt left and right. Taylor Decker being one of them. Glasgow, was hurt. Frank Ragnow tried to come back, and he failed his physical because he, pulled a hamstring or something like that, right? Penei Sewell was not playing 100%. There was a handful of games I saw him on the sideline wincing in pain, but he's still out there trying to do his job, getting paid millions and millions of dollars to get absolutely annihilated by a defensive lineman, but also to protect Jared Goff, who is your most prized possession because he is the quarterback. He is the franchise, right? So I like what the Lions are doing right now. They signed Cade Mays to a 3-year, $25 million deal. Kind of crazy for a center, but you know what? We can make it work, right? It's the NFL. You got to make it work, right? But I liked how they're investing in the offensive line. They need to. Number one priority. And then obviously you got your running back 2 with Isaiah Pacheco, which is great. And I agree with you. I think they're going to use him on third down and in goal line situations. Obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get the load of the runs, right? But at least he's not going to be the sole dependent in the running game. You got Isaiah Pacheco in the backfield to help him out a little bit. And then obviously Jahmyr Gibbs doesn't get banged up and he doesn't have to run the ball, 200, 300, 400 times this season and try to keep him healthy, right? So by adding Isaiah Pacheco, you have help, you have assistance there. So that's good. But now you have to beef the offensive line up, and that's what they're doing. They got K. Mays yesterday. They got the Juice Scruggs from the Houston Texans. And a lot of people say, well, he only played in one game last year. And, that's kind of scary. But at the same time, maybe he can stay healthy. Maybe he can learn the Lions system. Maybe get some reps on the offensive line, because obviously you still got Penei Sewell. Hopefully he's 100% because right now that's your best offensive lineman for the Detroit Lions. And you need all the offensive linemen you can get. The draft's coming up in a month, so maybe find a top-rated offensive lineman to help, protect Jared Goff. And, we got Tate Ratledge last year from Arkansas, kind of had an up and down season, and he's a rookie. Okay. He's a rookie offensive lineman. That's a lot to ask for a young offensive lineman to play inside, trying to block, 250 plus pound monsters coming after you 100 miles an hour, trying to protect Jared Goff nonetheless. And, obviously, as I mentioned before, he has to have the most perfect offensive line. But I like what they're doing so far. Free agency has been absolute chaos. I mentioned it yesterday in one of my posts on Instagram. But, my phone was blowing up at work like every 20 minutes. Lions signed this guy. Oh, Mike Evans. That was the most surprising trade, in my opinion. He went to the 49ers. I didn't see that coming. I thought he was going to stay with the Buccaneers. But that obviously the NFL at the end of the day is a business, right? So you have that going on. Tua Tagovailoa going to the Falcons, signing a 1-year deal, and that's a team that's had quarterback controversies for the past couple of years now. A couple of years ago, you signed Kirk Cousins to a big deal, but then you draft Michael Penix Jr. right out of Washington. That was kind of crazy, right? But now you got Tua Tagovailoa on a 1-year deal. Obviously, he's had concussion issues, so maybe that's why he only gets the 1-year deal. Who knows if he's going to start? I doubt it. But that was kind of crazy that he went to the Falcons. I knew the Dolphins were not going to keep him. I mean, it's just too much of a risk at this point, which is unfortunate because he's still relatively young. But they got Malik Willis now, got him from the Green Bay Packers. But yeah, lots of moving parts. And as you mentioned, Anzalone, he's no longer with us. He went to the Bucs. Lots of talk, even during the season last year and toward the end of the season. Oh, is Anzalone going to stay here? Well, obviously not. He's out of here. So he had that going on. Amik Robertson, he's no longer a Detroit Lion. He's with the Commanders now. So that's the business. You're going to lose, guys who were, kind of, I don't want to say fan favorites or maybe fan favorites, but recognizable on this Detroit Lions team, right? You're going to miss those guys, but in the process, you're going to gain, valuable assets that you absolutely need. And I've said numerous times, it starts with the offensive line, and that's what they're doing. So far, I think the Lions are doing pretty well, but I gotta wait till September and October and November and December, and maybe if we do make it to the playoffs, well, we have to at this point, right? Like I said, Super Bowl or bust this year, and everyone said that last year. Oh, Super Bowl or bust, Super Bowl. No, it's go time. Like, you better win a Super Bowl this year, or we're in trouble. We're in trouble. You had an opportunity a couple years ago, as I mentioned, that in the 2023 NFC Championship game, that was a heartbreaker. You're up by 17 against the 49ers, who I thought, that, going into that game, the Lions were the better team. Yeah, and then they just blew it. They had no business losing that game. The Lions did, unfortunately. But yeah, that was your moment. That was the season where it was just like, okay, the Lions are going to the Super Bowl. Fast forward, it didn't happen. And then since then, you into the 2024 season, number one seed, 15-win season, you win the NFC North again, back-to-back seasons. You get the bye week, and then you host a playoff game against a rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders, and you get absolutely embarrassed at home, right? So that happened the following year. And then last year, you didn't even make it to the playoffs. So I don't like that trend. That trend scares me a lot. I really hope that this year is a turnaround. We play some Detroit Lions football, get back to that, I guess, grit mentality, but just go out there and, be the team that you can be, right? We know this team is talented. This team can go places, but it's what you do in free agency, which they've done. They made a couple moves. I like that. It's what you do in the NFL draft. But now it's like, okay, how are we going to make this happen? How are we going to put this product on the field when the season starts in September? So we'll see what happens. But so far, the Lions are doing pretty good. But September, long ways away. It'll be here before we know it, as always. But what we're doing right now, I like it. I like what the Lions are doing right now.
Yeah,
So we'll
no,
see what
I
happens.
agree. I agree too. And I'm worried. Yeah, we've only been going down, not up, so definitely the wrong direction. But I hate to say it, and I've told a couple people this, but like, I think if Dan Campbell doesn't make the playoffs or even makes the Super Bowl this year, I think he's on the hot seat. And I know a lot of people have argued, and I see the argument. He took a 3-13 team to now, well, almost to the Super Bowl, to now a 9-8 team. And I don't know if it's just some of the fans like we're just greedy, or it's like, look, dude, if you're gonna put something together, first off, we've seen the mistakes that you've made and the reasons why we haven't made it to the Super Bowl. But yeah, it's just like, look, we get it, you turn this team around, but I mean, use the Steelers for an example. You can only make it to the playoffs or a 500 team for so long, and then it's like, dude, you're not improving. So, I mean, I really don't want the Lions to be a 500 or a first round exit every year. We've, we went from, we should have won it a couple years ago, like you said, in the NFC Championship game. When we went 15-1. I mean, what a waste of a season. You go 15-1 to you have nothing to show for it. So I'm hoping, I mean, our defense again is just completely depleted. So I'm worried about that. But like you said, if we can at least build the offense, and like I've told people, you know what? If we can put up 40 points a game, then hopefully the defense can just hold up their end of the bargain for what we have. But injuries have always been an issue for us, which I don't understand. It's like you got to look at your strength and conditioning coaches. You got to look at the behind the scenes stuff at that point. Yeah, everybody deals with injuries, but I mean, it feels like we're 10 to 15 people deep of injuries every year. So I don't know. I'm worried. I don't want to go back down the road of, 100 years before we win a championship. Something's got to change. And we can't have a revolving door of coordinators either because you're not going anywhere. So, yeah, but between that, the crazy moves that have been happening in the NFL, the Max Crosby thing, I figured he was on the move. Did not think Baltimore would be his spot. Detroit should have just did it. Should have went all in for it and, you know, see what happens. But yeah, a couple other things that I was shocked. The Kyler Murray thing, I feel like they haven't really been on the same page in a long time. So I kind of saw that coming. Tua was the same way. Dude, you can only have so many concussions before it's either you got to hang it up or you got to go somewhere else, which is what he's doing. So, I mean, hopefully both of those guys can, do something. I know Tua's already signed. Kyler's still waiting for a team. A lot of people say Kyler should go back and play baseball, which I think would be super cool. But yeah, I mean, I'm hoping. I'm hoping for something good. And the I hate to say it, but the Raiders are already looking good after the first couple days of free agency. And they pretty much have their quarterback lined up in Mendoza. So let's see. Maybe Las Vegas can pull something out.
Yeah, anything can happen. It's the NFL, and I like how they signed Tyler Lindenbaum. I was actually pushing for him to come to Detroit, but obviously the Raiders got to him first, signed a deal from the Ravens. But yeah, they got rid of Geno Smith. Obviously they're going to probably draft Mendoza with the first overall pick. Yeah, we'll see. Obviously the Raiders, one of those teams that been struggling. I know they made it to the playoffs a couple times under Derek Carr, but it doesn't really matter when you get knocked out in the first round. And that's what we dealt with a couple seasons ago as the number one seed, which is really embarrassing. But yeah, it's NFL free agency. It's absolute chaos. It always is. A lot of moving parts, questionable decisions, and like I said, absolute chaos. So we'll see what happens. You got Kenneth Walker, the Super Bowl MVP, going to the Chiefs. I thought that was really surprising. Mike Evans, as I mentioned earlier, going to the San Francisco 49ers. So that offense looks absolutely phenomenal. Maybe beef up that offensive line just a little bit more because their defense not too bad for the 49ers. So watch out for the San Francisco 49ers this season in the NFC West. Rashawn Gary, obviously former Michigan defensive end, played for the Packers. He's a Cowboy now. So that was another free agency sign that kind of shocking. But yeah, Romeo Dobbs earlier today signed with the Patriots as well. So yeah, lots of moving parts. Michael Pittman Jr. From the Colts, he's playing for the Steelers. I don't know who's going to be the quarterback there. I mean, is Aaron Rodgers coming back? I don't know. I mean, he's kind of old now. He's not 20 or 30 years old anymore. He's in his 40s, which is crazy because it makes us feel old. But yeah, I thought that was very interesting too. That signing as well. So, but yeah, I agree with you as well with the worrying part. Like I said, the NFL, you only have 17 games to prove yourself. And it's tough. And, yeah, all teams deal with injuries. I don't care what anyone says. It's nearly impossible if your team is 100% healthy. There's no way. Guys are out there, like I said, with Penei Sewell. There's no way he played that whole season 100%. But he was out there. I mean, he missed, I think, maybe a couple games last season, but he was out there like 95% of the time. And, I don't want to hear like, oh, yeah, Lee McNeil, rather. Oh, he's going to miss this many games. Oh, Brian Branch tore his Achilles. Oh, Kirby Joseph blew out his knee. Or, oh, we have Anzalone on the sideline. Well, not anymore. He's with the Bucks. But, just for the sake of argument from last year and even the previous year where we had all those injury issues. So back-to-back seasons with injury issues. Like I said, someone's got to question the strength and conditioning coach and strength and conditioning department rather at the Detroit for the Lions because yeah, that's crazy. That many injuries happen. Like a couple injuries here and there, I get that because it's football, it's a contact sport, it's a physical sport, but yeah, that strength and conditioning coach or department needs to be investigated, because that's crazy. You have all those players getting beat up and injured and they can't play. And then you got second stringers and third stringers and guys off the street playing. And you wonder why we went 9-8 last year. You wonder why we got first round exit, or second round rather exit in the divisional round of the playoffs a couple years ago against the Commanders.
Yeah,
it's the NFL. You got to figure it out. But we'll see what the Lions can do. But yeah, I'm worried too. I'm with you on that.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, all of our teams are looking good. But we just need to bring one championship. That's all this city needs. And it doesn't even have to be one from each, sport. Just one in general, and I think this city will be fine for another 100 years.
Yeah.
So, but no, I appreciate you having, coming on and everything. I know we had some difficulties here for the last couple days, but it looks like everything worked out on this one. So, I definitely want to have you on again soon. Maybe even do an in-person one and everything. But where can everybody find you at? I know you're on a lot of the social media platforms, but let everybody know, and any last-minute things you want to say.
So yeah, you can find me, Guys Time with the Brys, on Instagram. I have Instagram account there. On Facebook. The audio version of my episodes for my podcast are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Just type in Guys Time with the Brys. It should be there. You'll see the yellow and black logo. It should definitely stand out, so you can listen to all my episodes there. I'm on YouTube as well, Guys Time with the Brys. Check me out. It's some good stuff there. Like I said, sports fanatic. Get very passionate when I'm talking about sports. So yeah, I'm all over the place. You gotta take advantage of social media, right? And we talked about this in the beginning, making connections, networking, huge, absolutely huge in today's world, not just for podcasting purposes or sports broadcasting purposes, or, just in life in general. Like, you have to network, you gotta put yourself out there. And if you don't, no one's going to know who you are. So I've definitely taken advantage of that opportunity using all the platforms, like I mentioned, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. So yeah, you can definitely check me out there. And then, thoughts for today. Yeah. Third time is the charm, my friend. We finally got this one. It's been a pleasure being on your show. I love what you're doing. I saw, I think it was a few months ago. I can't really remember when I first saw you start posting content. And I was just like, oh, dude, I know that guy. I went to school with him. And I know he's a big Pistons fan because he always talked about Pistons in our classes. And that's all we did in classes. We learned some things here and there. But, 95% of the time we were talking about sports. But anyways, I saw you were posting content. And I was just like, that's amazing, because you're a part of this community of people who love sports, are passionate about sports, want to talk about the big topics and issues of today's sports world, provide our opinions, because that's what it is at the end of the day. You don't have to be right or wrong, but you have to have an opinion. You got to back it up with facts, right? So, and that's what you've done. And I see you all over the place. You're on all these different podcasts. You're doing episodes with people out of state, which is crazy. That just shows how much reach you have. And then I saw you on the Sports Reels podcast. Follow them, by the way. A lot of great content there. I like to get to know those guys as well, because I saw another post today. The guy with the glasses, you obviously know his name. Definitely sports guy, does the updates for that channel, I guess, or that account on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. But yeah, this is our little community. This is a community of people who love sports, and to be a part of that community, it's awesome. So being on Catching Up with Cody today, man, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. It's been an honor. And yeah, we'll definitely have to collaborate soon. And yeah, like you said, do a possible in-person interview, some more sports, and just hopefully one Detroit team, like you said, brings a championship. I don't care if it's a World Series. I don't care if it's a Stanley Cup. I don't care if it's a Super Bowl. And damn it, I don't care if it's the NBA championship. Like, bring something home. Bring something home to Detroit. Give us something to be proud of. And yeah, no, it's been fun today. So thank you for having me on, catching up with Cody. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, of course, anytime.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, I'll definitely get you connected with the Sports Reel podcast. Those guys are awesome. Um, they're what they got going on over there is really cool, and I can't wait to be in their studio as well. So, you know, I haven't been putting the best effort into the podcast as much as I wanted to, but to hear, people like you, even like what you were just saying, and seeing my content, and just people in general, just it doesn't seem, I sometimes I feel like I'm not doing as much as I should be, but it's really good to hear, and it keeps me motivated when people like you say stuff like that. So appreciate you having, coming on and everything, and can't wait to do another episode with you soon.
Yeah, man, I can't wait either. And just to piggyback off what you're saying, yeah, just keep going, man. Don't quit. I know that's a lot easier said than done, especially when you don't see results at first. Like, dude, I've been doing this for 6 years, going on 6 years now. And I'm finally starting to see a little bit of results, not just from the podcast front, but as I mentioned earlier, from the radio broadcasting, the play-by-play stuff, the sports broadcasting stuff, calling those games at Chippewa Valley High School, your alma mater, having connections in that universe, as well as our universe here doing sports podcasts. But yeah, I know it's tough, but you know what? Keep going, man. Like I said, you got my support. Obviously, you've made connections. Being on the Sports Reels podcast and hanging out with a bunch of other people who do this on a side or maybe for a living. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, the key is just keep going, man. This is your passion. This is what you want to do. Yeah, you just got to keep going. Results will come. I promise you that.
I appreciate it. Same to you. Don't stop doing your stuff, and I definitely am a number one supporting fan over here. So keep up the good work, and we'll be in touch soon. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Cody. Thank you for having me on. Like I said, it's been an honor.
Yes, for sure. Well, thank you guys for catching up with Cody. Thanks, Zach, for coming on, and catch up with Cody, and also check out Guys Time with Brys. Thank you guys. Peace.